Why you'd probably die before lunch in ancient Rome. Hey there, night owls and history buffs. Tonight we're traveling back to a time when roads were paved with stone gods, were worshipped in marble temples, and your life expectancy was roughly equivalent to a modern smartphone battery. We're heading to ancient Rome, circa 150 AD, during the height of the empire under Antoninus Pius. Now forget everything Hollywood told you about gladiators and noble senators and flowing togas. The truth, if you were an average Roman citizen, you'd probably be dead before your afternoon wine break. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The first thing that hits you isn't the sight of the Colosseum gleaming in the distance or the sound of Latin being spoken in the streets below. It's the smell. Sweet Jupiter's beard, the smell. You wake up in your insulated apartment on the fourth floor of a 6-story tenement building that creaks like an old ship in a storm. The air is thick with the aroma of olive oil, gone rancid urine from the chamber pots of 200 neighbors, wood smoke from countless cooking fires, and something else. Something that might be rotting fish or might be rotting neighbor. In Rome, both possibilities are equally likely. Your bed is a straw mattress on a wooden frame covered with a wool blanket that scratches like angry wasps. There's no glass in your single window opening, just wooden shutters that do little to keep out the cold morning air of early February. The brazier in the corner has gone out during the night because charcoal costs money and you're not exactly swimming in denarii. You stretch and immediately regret it. Every joint in your body protests, like it's filing a formal complaint with the gods. You're 28 years old, which in Roman terms makes you practically a senior citizen. The combination of lead pipes, unwashed vegetables, workplace accidents, and the general hostility of daily life has aged you like a piece of meat left in the forum sun. Your sleeping tunic is damp with sweat despite the cold. The apartment is cramped, shared with your wife, 2 children, and your wife's elderly mother who never stops complaining about how things were better under Trajan. She's not wrong, but by the gods, does she have to mention it every morning? The walls are thin enough that you can hear Marcus next door arguing with his wife about money again, thin enough that you know exactly when old Gaius upstairs uses his chamber pot, and thin enough that when the couple below decides to express their marital affection, the entire building gets an unwanted education in Roman bedroom acoustics. Outside your shutters, Rome is already waking up. Cartwheels rumble on stone streets as merchants hurry to set up their stalls before the morning crowds descend. Somewhere in the distance, a rooster crows, probably confused about why it's living in the middle of the largest city in the world. You swing your legs over the side of the bed, and your bare feet touch the cold stone floor. Not marble, mind you. That's for rich people. Your floor is common stone, cracked in several places with gaps that harbor bugs, mice, and the occasional small snake that wandered up from the sewers. Time to start another day in the eternal city. Time to see how long you can avoid death, disease, disaster, or the displeasure of someone with more power than you. Which, let's be honest, is pretty much everyone. Your first challenge isn't finding breakfast or getting dressed. It's simply moving through your own building without dying. Roman tenements are architectural marvels in the same way that a house of cards is an engineering wonder. Impressive until you actually try to use them. The wooden stairs groan ominously under your weight. Every step is a small gamble with gravity. The handrail wobbles like a drunk senator at a wine festival. And there's always that one step the one that's rotted almost completely through and waits patiently for an unsuspecting resident to discover it the hard way. You navigate carefully around the broken pottery shards on the third floor landing where Claudia dropped her oil lamp last week. No one's cleaned it up because, well, who exactly would do that? The building owner lives in a villa outside the city and hasn't set foot in this place since the day he bought it. The tenants are too busy working, dying, or trying not to die to organize a pottery cleanup committee. On the second floor, you hold your breath as you pass the apartment where three families share one room. The smell of too many humans in too small a space mingles with the aroma of whatever they cooked last night. Probably lentils again. Always lentils. Lentils are the cockroaches of Roman cuisine. They survive everything and taste like disappointment. Finally, you reach the ground floor. The exit is so close you can taste freedom. Well, actually, what you're tasting is the general miasma of urban Roman air, but freedom is mixed in there somewhere. But wait, what's that sound? Oh no, it's the sound of running water where there shouldn't be running water. The building's water supply, such as it is, comes from a single pipe connected to the city's aqueduct system. When it works, it provides a trickle of brownish liquid that's technically water. When it doesn't work, it provides an indoor flood that turns the ground floor into a Roman version of Venice. Today, it's not working correctly. Water is spurting from a crack in the wall, turning the entranceway into a muddy swamp. You have three choices: wade through it and arrive at work with wet feet that will stay wet all day, try to jump across and risk slipping into what might charitably be called a puddle, or go back upstairs and wait for someone else to fix it. Spoiler alert, no one else is going to fix it. You choose to wade through because Roman life is basically a series of increasingly unpleasant choices, and this one is merely unpleasant rather than potentially fatal. Your sandals squelch through the mud, and you try not to think about what else might be mixed in with the water. Ignorance in this case is not just bliss, it's survival. Step one of your Roman day complete. You've successfully exited your own building without being crushed, drowned, or poisoned. The bar for daily success in ancient Rome is remarkably low. Stepping into the street is like entering an arena where the gladiators are carts, the lions are angry merchants, and you are the unarmed criminal facing certain doom for the entertainment of the gods. Roman streets are narrow, not charmingly narrow like in a romantic painting, aggressively narrow, like someone designed them specifically to ensure maximum human suffering and congestion. Two carts can barely pass each other, which means that when they try, everyone on foot gets pressed against the walls like olives in a press. The street is paved with large stone blocks, which sounds civilized until you remember that these stones have been polished smooth by decades of cartwheels rain and various bodily fluids. They're slippery when wet, which is always, and they have gaps between them that are perfectly sized to catch your sandal and send you sprawling into whatever unidentifiable muck is flowing in the gutters. Speaking of the gutters, they serve as Rome's storm drains, sewers, garbage disposal system, and general repository for anything Romans don't want to keep. Dead rats, food scraps, human waste, broken pottery, and the occasional deceased pigeon all flow merrily along toward the Tiber River, which serves as the city's ultimate waste management solution. The crowds are already thick even in the early morning. Romans don't believe in personal space. That's a luxury for barbarians who live in small villages where you can actually see the horizon. Here you're constantly bumping into being pushed by and occasionally being stepped on by your fellow citizens. There's Marcus the baker carrying a tray of fresh bread on his head while somehow managing to avoid the overhead dangers that make Roman streets an adventure. There's Julia, the tavern keeper, already half drunk and shouting at a customer who apparently owes her money. And there's Gaius, the fish seller, whose arrival is announced by smell approximately 3 blocks before he becomes visible. But the real hazard isn't the crowd, it's what comes from above. Romans live in tall buildings, and they have a charming custom of disposing of their waste by simply throwing it out the window. Chamber pots, kitchen scraps, dirty water, and various unidentifiable substance rain down from the upper floors with surprising frequency. There's supposed to be a warning shout, cave, but people often forget, or they're in a hurry, or they're just feeling antisocial. You duck as a stream of grayish water splashes exactly where your head was a moment before. Someone up there is either washing dishes or emptying a chamber pot, and frankly in Rome the difference is often academic. A cart loaded with amphorae full of wine lurches around the corner pulled by an ox that looks about as thrilled to be here as you are. The cart driver is shouting something about people getting out of the way, but his Latin is heavily accented, and you can't tell if he's from Gaul, Germania, or just very, very drunk. You press yourself against the wall as the cart passes and feel something squish under your shoulder. You don't look to see what it is. In Rome, some mysteries are better left unsolved. The morning sun is climbing higher, and with it the temperature of both the air and the tempers around you. Romans are not naturally patient people, and crowded conditions don't improve their disposition. Arguments break out with the frequency of summer thunderstorms. Most are resolved with shouting, some with shoving, and occasionally with the kind of creative cursing that would make a Gallic warrior blush. You're still 3 blocks from your destination. It's not even fully sunrise yet, and you've already nearly been crushed by a cart soaked by mystery liquid from above and exposed to enough profanity to scandalize a satyr. Welcome to Roman rush hour. The games in the Colosseum are tame by comparison. You survive the journey to the local tavern where you'll grab a quick breakfast before work. Roman taverns are not the cozy neighborhood pubs you might imagine. They're more like feeding stations for humans who have given up on the concept of flavor in exchange for the promise of not starving to death. The tavern is a small room with stone counters behind which large clay jars called dolia are embedded. These contain various forms of prepared food that have been sitting there for, well, it's better not to ask how long. The proprietor, a man named Lucius, who has the general appearance of someone who samples his own wine, too frequently greets you with the enthusiasm of a tax collector. Bread and wine, he asks, because in Roman taverns that's basically the entire menu. Sometimes there's cheese if you're feeling adventurous and don't mind the risk of food poisoning. The bread is not what you'd call fresh. Roman bakers bake once a day, and by the time it reaches the tavern, it has the texture of a roof tile and roughly the same nutritional value. You dip it in wine to soften it, which is the Roman equivalent of microwaving leftover pizza. The wine is, well, calling it wine is generous. It's more like grape-flavored alcohol that has been mixed with water, honey, and optimism. Romans don't drink their wine straight. They consider that barbaric. Instead, they water it down to roughly the consistency of disappointment. The good news is that it kills most of the bacteria that might be lurking in your breakfast. The bad news is that it tastes like it kills bacteria. You sit on a wooden stool that wobbles ominously and survey your fellow diners. There's a group of construction workers who are loudly discussing the engineering flaws in the building they're supposed to repair today. Their conversation suggests that Roman construction standards are more like Roman construction suggestions. At another table, a merchant is arguing with a customer about the quality of his olive oil. The customer claims it's been mixed with lamp oil. The merchant insists it's pure olive oil, but he won't make eye contact while saying it. In Rome, customer service is an oxymoron. Near the door, an old man is telling anyone who will listen about how much better everything was under the old emperor. This is a Roman tradition. Every generation believes the previous emperor was better than the current one, except when they lived under the previous emperor, in which case they complained about him too. You bite into your bread and immediately regret it. Not because it tastes bad. You've lowered your expectations to the point where taste is a luxury you can't afford. But because something crunches between your teeth and it's definitely not supposed to be there. Could be a piece of pottery that got mixed into the grain. Could be an insect. Could be a small pebble. In Roman bread, mystery ingredients are a feature, not a bug. The wine burns slightly as it goes down, which is either because it's particularly strong or because it contains actual lamp oil. You decide not to pursue this line of inquiry because ignorance is often the difference between finishing breakfast and spending the day violently ill. As you eat, you become aware of a commotion outside, shouts, the sound of running feet, and what might be weapons clashing. This could be anything from a minor riot to a major riot to someone accidentally dropping a tray of pottery. In Rome, these all sound remarkably similar. Lucius, the tavern keeper, doesn't even look up from wiping down a cup with a rag that's probably dirtier than the cup. Probably just the Praetorian Guard, he mutters. Someone's either been promoted or executed. Either way, not our problem. This is the Roman attitude toward urban violence. Acknowledge it exists, but don't let it interfere with commerce. The show must go on even if the show occasionally involves actual bloodshed. You finish your breakfast, leave a few coins on the counter, and prepare to venture back into the streets. The commotion outside has died down, which could mean the situation resolved peacefully or that everyone involved is now dead. In Rome, both outcomes are considered successful conflict resolution. Time to head to work, assuming your workplace is still standing and hasn't been accidentally demolished by enthusiastic urban planning. Your workplace is only 6 blocks away, but in Rome, distance is measured not in space, but in the number of potential disasters you encounter per block. Today's commute promises to be particularly educational. The first obstacle appears immediately, a crowd gathered around what appears to be a heated political discussion. Romans love political discussions the way gladiators love sharp objects, with enthusiasm and a high likelihood of someone getting hurt. 2 men are shouting at each other about tax policy. In most civilizations, this would be tedious. In Rome, it's entertainment. A crowd has formed not because Romans are particularly interested in tax policy, but because there's always the chance that political discourse will escalate into physical violence. You try to edge around the crowd, but Roman crowds are like quicksand. The more you struggle, the deeper you sink. Before you know it, you're pressed between a fish seller who smells like low tide and a woman carrying a basket of live chickens who seem personally offended by your proximity. One of the debaters is gesticulating wildly and appears to be making points about infrastructure spending. The other is responding with what sounds like a passionate defense of fiscal responsibility. Neither of them is listening to the other, but that's never stopped a good Roman political argument. "The aqueducts are crumbling," shouts the first man. "The taxes are crushing us," responds the second. "Better crushed by taxes than dying of thirst," counters the first. The crowd murmurs approval at this rhetorical flourish. Romans appreciate good political theater, especially when there's a chance it might end in fisticuffs. You finally extract yourself from the crowd and continue down the street only to encounter obstacle number 2, a religious procession. A group of priests are carrying a statue of Minerva, goddess of wisdom, through the streets. This would be inspiring if they weren't completely blocking traffic and chanting so loudly that conversation within a 3-block radius is impossible. Romans take their religion seriously, which means you can't just push past a religious procession. That would be impious, and impiety in Rome can get you fined cursed by the gods, or both. So you wait along with dozens of other Romans who are trying to get to work while the priests slowly make their way down the narrow street. The statue of Minerva sways dangerously as the procession navigates around a particularly large pothole. Roman streets are full of potholes because Roman city planning operates on the principle that problems will solve themselves if you ignore them long enough. This approach works about as well as you'd expect. One of the priests stumbles and the statue wobbles alarmingly. The crowd gasps. If the statue falls and breaks, it's either a terrible omen or an excuse for a festival, depending on how you interpret these things. Romans are optimists when it comes to religious disasters. Fortunately, the priest recovers the statue, stays upright, and the procession continues on its stately way. You're now running late for work, but being late for work is better than being cursed by Minerva, so you consider this a win. Obstacle number 3 appears as you turn the corner: construction. A team of workers is attempting to repair a section of the street that has apparently decided to return to its natural state of chaos. Romans are excellent engineers when they want to be, but street maintenance falls into the category of someone else's problem until the street becomes literally unusable. The work crew consists of 6 men, 3 of whom are actually working, while the other 3 are engaged in what appears to be a philosophical discussion about the best technique for moving large stones. Roman work crews operate on the theory that physical labor should be balanced with intellectual debate, which sounds enlightened until you're trying to get around them. You can't just muscle it, one worker is explaining to another. You have to think about leverage angles, the natural properties of stone. "Just pick up the damn rock," responds his colleague, who clearly represents the anti-intellectual faction of Roman construction work. The foreman appears to be mediating this dispute while simultaneously trying to direct the actual work. He's sweating despite the cool morning air, which suggests that managing Roman construction workers is roughly as stressful as managing a revolt. You wait for a gap in the work and dart across the construction zone, narrowly avoiding a wheelbarrow full of rubble being pushed by a worker who is looking everywhere except where he's going. Roman workplace safety standards are somewhat relaxed, operating on the principle that if you're stupid enough to get hurt, that's between you and the gods. 3 blocks to go. You're already exhausted and the day hasn't even officially started yet, but you're alive, uninjured, and haven't been arrested, which in Rome counts as a successful morning so far. Work where dreams go to die. You arrive at your workplace, a small shop where you craft leather goods for the various Romans who need sandals, belts, and armor straps. It's not glamorous work, but it's honest work. And in a city where many people make their living through theft, prostitution, or politics, which Romans consider roughly equivalent, honest work is actually pretty respectable. Your shop is located on the ground floor of another insula building with a wide opening that faces the street. There's no glass window. Glass is expensive, and Romans haven't quite figured out how to make large sheets of it anyway. Instead, there's a wooden shutter that you can close at night to secure your workspace and protect your tools from theft. The shop is small, maybe 12 feet by 8 feet, with stone walls, a packed earth floor, and a roof that leaks in exactly 3 places when it rains. You know this because you've positioned clay pots to catch the drips, and the musical sound of water hitting pottery provides a cheerful soundtrack during Rome's frequent downpours. Your tools are laid out on a wooden workbench: knives for cutting leather awls, for punching holes, needles for stitching, and various implements whose names sound like medieval torture devices, but are actually essential for creating quality leather work. Everything is handmade because mass production is still a few centuries away, and everything shows the wear of daily use because replacing tools is expensive. The leather itself comes from various animals: cows, goats, sheep, and occasionally exotic creatures from the far reaches of the empire. You don't ask too many questions about where the leather comes from because Roman supply chains operate on the principle that ignorance is bliss, and the customer is always right to not inquire about details. Your first customer of the day is a Roman soldier who needs his military belt repaired. Roman soldiers are generally polite customers because they're trained to follow orders and respect authority, even when the authority is a civilian leather worker. They're also armed, which tends to discourage customer service disputes. The buckle broke during training, he explains, showing you a belt that has clearly seen better days. And my Optio says if I show up to formation with my gear falling apart, he'll make me clean the latrine for a month. Roman military discipline is thorough and creative. Cleaning the latrines is considered one of the more unpleasant punishments, which says something about Roman military latrines that you probably don't want to think about too hard. You examine the belt. The leather is cracked in several places. The stitching is coming apart and the buckle hasn't just broken. It's apparently been stomped on by a very large, very angry horse. This isn't a repair job so much as a complete reconstruction project. I can fix it, you tell him, but it's going to take most of the day and it's not going to be cheap. He nods grimly. Roman soldiers understand the economics of military equipment. Everything breaks, everything costs money to fix, and military pay is designed to keep you alive but not comfortable. As you begin working on the belt, your second customer arrives, a wealthy merchant who wants a custom set of sandals. Wealthy Romans have particular opinions about footwear, and those opinions are usually expensive to implement. I want them made from the finest leather, he announces, with silver buckles and decorative stitching. Money is no object. When a Roman says money is no object, it usually means money is very much an object, but they want you to think they're wealthy enough that cost isn't a consideration. You quote him a price that reflects both the materials and the complexity of the work and watch his expression carefully. He winces slightly, which confirms that money is indeed an object, but nods anyway. How long will it take? 2 weeks. You tell him which is your standard answer because Roman customers always want their custom goods finished yesterday. Can you do it in 1 week? He asks, because Roman customers also always try to negotiate delivery times. For an additional fee, you respond because Roman craftsmen have learned that rush jobs require rush pricing. He haggles for a few minutes, which is expected. Romans consider haggling to be a form of social interaction, like discussing the weather or complaining about politicians. Eventually, you settle on a price and timeline that leaves both of you mildly dissatisfied, which in Roman commerce counts as a successful negotiation. As the morning progresses, you settle into the rhythm of your work. Cut leather stitch seams, punch holes, attach buckles. It's repetitive, but there's something satisfying about creating useful objects with your hands. Plus, it's one of the few jobs in Rome where the biggest occupational hazard is accidentally cutting yourself with your own tools rather than being murdered by customers conscripted into the army or eaten by wild animals. The street outside provides a constant soundtrack of urban life, cartwheels on stone merchants shouting, children playing, and the occasional burst of creative profanity when someone's day goes wrong. It's the sound of civilization, which is comforting until you remember that Roman civilization has a tendency toward sudden violent collapse. Around midday, you take a break to eat some bread and cheese you brought from home. The bread is still hard enough to use as a weapon, but the cheese is reasonably fresh and hasn't developed any interesting colors yet. You sit in the doorway of your shop watching the crowds pass by and reflecting on the fact that you've made it through half a day without dying, being robbed, or contracting a disease. In Rome, this counts as a highly successful morning. Midday in Rome is when the city really comes alive, in the same way that a beehive comes alive when someone throws a rock at it. The sun is high, the temperature is rising, and Romans are venturing out in numbers that would make a modern fire marshal weep with despair. You decide to close your shop temporarily and join the midday meal rush at the local Thermopolium, a Roman fast food establishment that serves hot food from large clay jars embedded in a stone counter. It's the ancient equivalent of a food truck, except it doesn't move and the health department hasn't been invented yet. The Thermopolium is packed with customers who all seem to be in a hurry to eat something quickly and return to whatever it is Romans do to make money. The proprietor, a man named Quintus, who has the harried expression of someone who has been serving the Roman public for too long, is ladling stew from one of the jars into wooden bowls with the efficiency of a military quartermaster. The menu, such as it is, consists of whatever Quintus managed to acquire that morning from vendors who may or may not have been entirely honest about the freshness of their ingredients. Today's offerings include a lentil stew that smells like it was made sometime during the previous emperor's reign, roasted chickpeas that rattle in the jar like small stones, and a fish sauce that appears to be moving on its own. You order the lentil stew because it's the safest option, relatively speaking. Roman food safety operates on the principle that if it's hot enough, the heat will kill anything that might kill you. This theory is occasionally proven wrong, but not often enough to discourage people from testing it. Quintus ladles the stew into a bowl and hands it to you along with a piece of bread that could double as a shield in an emergency. The stew is, well, it's hot, and it contains ingredients that were probably vegetables at some point in their existence. You don't ask for details because Roman food service operates on a don't ask, don't tell policy regarding ingredients. You find a space at one of the stone tables and begin eating while eavesdropping on the conversations around you. Romans are natural gossipers, and a Thermopolium is basically the ancient equivalent of social media, except with more wine and fewer cat pictures. At the table next to you, two merchants are discussing business. The grain shipment from Egypt is late again. One is saying, if it doesn't arrive soon, bread prices are going to double. Could be pirates, suggests the other, or storms, or the Egyptians are holding out for a better price. Or all three, concludes the first merchant gloomily. Romans are natural pessimists when it comes to business, probably because Roman business involves so many variables that can kill you. At another table, a group of construction workers are complaining about their current project. The architect keeps changing the design. One worker grumbles. First he wants the columns wider, then narrower, then he wants them moved completely. Architects, mutters another worker, as if this explains everything. In Rome, architects are considered necessary evils like tax collectors or plague rats. You're halfway through your stew when a commotion erupts near the counter. A customer is arguing with Quintus about the quality of the fish sauce. This sauce is rancid, the customer shouts. It smells like a dead dolphin. All fish sauce smells like dead fish. Quintus responds reasonably. That's what fish sauce is. But this smells like fish that died of old age and regret, the customer insists. A crowd begins to gather because Romans love a good argument almost as much as they love gladiatorial combat. The debate over fish sauce quality becomes increasingly philosophical, touching on questions of freshness, proper fermentation techniques, and the nature of acceptable decay. Other customers begin choosing sides. Some support the customer's right to non-rancid condiments. Others defend Quintus's honor as a purveyor of traditional Roman cuisine. A few suggest that the customer is being overly sensitive and should be grateful he's not eating military rations. The argument escalates when the customer threatens to report Quintus to the aediles, the Roman officials responsible for market regulation. This is considered fighting words in the world of Roman food service because the idols have the power to shut down a business for health violations, and Roman health violations can range from mildly questionable to actively trying to murder customers. Quintus responds by challenging the customer's knowledge of fish sauce, his ancestry, and his general fitness to judge Roman cuisine. The customer retaliates by questioning Quintus's honesty, his competence, and his relationship with various gods of commerce. Just as the situation appears ready to escalate to actual violence, a Praetorian Guard patrol appears at the entrance to the Thermopolium. Romans have a healthy respect for the Praetorian Guard, who serve as the emperor's personal security force and generally don't have time for food service disputes. The argument immediately de-escalates. The customer pays for his meal and leaves muttering under his breath about the decline of Roman civilization. Quintus returns to serving food, grumbling about ungrateful customers who don't appreciate quality fish sauce. You finish your stew quickly and return to your shop, reflecting on the fact that in Rome, even lunch is a potentially dangerous activity. The food might be contaminated, the customers might be violent, and the authorities might decide that your presence at a minor disturbance makes you a person of interest. But hey, at least you're not hungry anymore. The afternoon in Rome is when things start to get interesting, and by interesting, I mean likely to result in injury, property damage, or unwanted legal entanglements. The combination of rising temperatures, increasing crowds, and Romans who have had time to drink wine with lunch creates a volatile mixture that would concern any reasonable person. Fortunately, Romans are not reasonable people. You're back in your shop working on the soldier's belt when you become aware of unusual activity in the street outside. There's more shouting than usual, and the shouting has a particular quality that suggests it's not just merchants advertising their wares or neighbors arguing about property lines. Through your open shop front, you can see people running, not jogging for exercise. Romans haven't invented recreational fitness yet. Running with purpose, the kind of running that suggests something unpleasant is happening and spreading quickly through the neighborhood. A young man dashes past your shop, and you call out to him. "What's happening?" "Riot in the Forum," he shouts back without stopping. Something about bread prices. Ah, a bread riot. Romans riot about many things: politics, religion, sports, entertainment, and general dissatisfaction with life. But bread riots are particularly serious because they touch on the fundamental Roman principle that people should be able to afford food. When bread becomes too expensive, Romans take this as a personal insult from the gods, the government, or both. You quickly begin securing your shop. Tools go into a locked chest. Valuable leather gets hidden in a secret compartment you built for occasions, exactly like this, and you prepare to close and bar the wooden shutters that protect your storefront. Roman riots follow predictable patterns. They start with angry crowds gathering to complain about whatever has triggered their displeasure. They escalate when someone throws something, usually a piece of pottery or overripe fruit. They become dangerous when the crowds start moving through the streets, looking for symbols of authority to attack or businesses to loot. And they end when either the Praetorian Guard arrives with overwhelming force or everyone gets tired and goes home for dinner. As you're securing your shop, your neighbor Marcus pokes his head out of his bakery. "You closing early?" he asks. "Bread riot," you explain. He nods grimly. "Always bread riots." You'd think people would learn to stockpile grain, but no, everyone assumes the supply ships will always arrive on time. Marcus speaks with the authority of someone who actually bakes bread for a living and understands the complexities of Roman food distribution. Roman supply chains are marvels of logistics when they work and complete disasters when they don't. "How bad do you think it'll get?" you ask. Marcus shrugs. "Depends on whether the Praetorian Guard is having a good day or a bad day. If they're feeling diplomatic, they'll just contain the crowd and wait for people to get bored. If they're feeling irritable, he doesn't need to finish the sentence. Romans know what happens when the Praetorian Guard feels irritable. The sound of the approaching crowd is getting louder. You can make out individual voices now shouting slogans about grain distributors, corrupt officials, and the general unfairness of life in the empire. Roman crowds are remarkably articulate when they're angry, possibly because public speaking is considered an essential skill for Roman citizens. You finish securing your shop and step inside, closing the shutters and dropping the heavy wooden bar that locks them in place. Your shop is now a fortress, approximately the size of a large closet, which would be reassuring if Roman fortresses weren't famous for eventually being conquered by determined attackers. Through the gaps in the shutters, you can see the crowd flowing down the street like an angry river. Most of the people are ordinary Romans, craftsmen, laborers, small merchants, who are genuinely upset about bread prices and not particularly interested in violence. But mixed in with them are the kinds of people who show up to any public disturbance because they enjoy chaos for its own sake. Someone throws a pottery shard at a building across the street. It shatters against the stone wall with a satisfying crash that draws cheers from the crowd. This is the signal for other people to start throwing things because Romans believe that if one person throws something, everyone should throw something. It's a democratic approach to civil unrest. More pottery shards fly through the air, followed by pieces of rotting fruit, chunks of stale bread, which explains why people are rioting about bread prices and the occasional sandal. Roman riots are remarkably egalitarian when it comes to projectiles. Anything that can be thrown will be thrown. The crowd surges past your shop, and you hold your breath as several people test your shutters to see if they're properly secured. They rattle ominously, but hold firm. You've built them well because in Rome your security is only as good as your carpentry skills. Through the gaps, you catch glimpses of the crowd's makeshift banners. Someone has painted "Bread for Romans" on a piece of cloth. Another sign reads, "Down with corrupt grain dealers," which is specific enough to suggest this riot has actual political goals rather than being general urban mayhem. A third banner simply says, "Death to everyone," which probably represents the faction of rioters who are just here for the violence. The crowd continues flowing past your shop toward the forum, where presumably they plan to present their grievances to any officials brave enough or stupid enough to listen. Roman officials generally fall into two categories: those who hide during riots and those who become targets of riots. There's not much middle ground. You wait in your shuttered shop, listening to the sounds of Roman democracy in action, shouting, chanting the crash of breaking pottery and the occasional burst of what sounds like organized singing. Romans even riot musically. After what feels like hours, but is probably only 30 minutes, the sounds begin to fade. Either the crowd has moved on to terrorize another neighborhood, or they've been dispersed by armed intervention. You wait a little longer to be safe, because emerging too early from a riot shelter is a good way to get mistaken for a looter by cleanup crews. When you finally venture to crack open your shutters, the street is littered with pottery shards, fruit rinds, and abandoned sandals, but is otherwise empty. A few shopkeepers are emerging from their own hiding places, surveying the damage and calculating losses. Marcus waves at you from his bakery doorway. "All clear," he calls. "Praetorian Guard rounded them up near the Circus Maximus. No major damage in our neighborhood." You fully open your shutters and step out to survey your shop. Everything appears intact. Your tools are still secure, your leather goods are unharmed, and your building hasn't been set on fire, which in Roman terms counts as a complete victory. "Could have been worse," observes Marcus philosophically. In Rome, "could have been worse" is the closest thing to optimism that circumstances generally allow. The sun is beginning to sink toward the western hills, painting the Roman sky in shades of orange and purple that would be beautiful if you had time to appreciate beauty. But this is Rome, and you're too busy trying to survive the end of the workday to contemplate scenic views. You spend the remaining afternoon hours finishing the soldier's belt and starting preliminary work on the merchant's custom sandals. Roman leatherwork requires patience, precision, and the ability to ignore the various urban disasters happening just outside your shop. It's meditative in the way that any activity becomes meditative when the alternative is paying attention to how dangerous your environment is. As evening approaches, you begin the daily ritual of securing your shop for the night. Tools get locked away, valuable materials get hidden, and you prepare for the second most dangerous part of your day, going home. The first most dangerous part was leaving home this morning, but evening travel through Roman streets carries its own special risks. As darkness falls, Rome transforms from a chaotic but generally lawful city into a chaotic and significantly less lawful city. Roman street lighting consists of whatever torches wealthy citizens choose to place outside their homes, plus the occasional oil lamp maintained by civic-minded shopkeepers. Most streets are dark, which provides excellent cover for robbers, assassins, and people who are simply lost and confused. The City Watch exists theoretically, but Roman law enforcement operates on the principle that prevention is someone else's job. They're much better at investigating crimes after they've been committed than at stopping crimes while they're happening. You lock up your shop and begin the journey home carrying a small oil lamp that provides just enough light to see where you're walking and just enough visible flame to advertise your location to anyone looking for a target. The streets are less crowded now, but the people who are out after dark fall into several categories. Workers heading home like yourself, tavern customers who are either going to drink or coming from drinking, merchants securing their shops, and various individuals whose nocturnal activities are best not examined too closely. You take a different route home than you took to work this morning because Roman survival wisdom suggests varying your routine to avoid establishing patterns that criminals can exploit. Tonight you head through the Suburra, Rome's most notorious neighborhood, where the rent is cheap and life is cheaper. The Suburra is where Romans go when they can't afford to live anywhere else, which means it's full of people who have nothing left to lose. This makes them either very dangerous or very philosophical, depending on their individual temperament and alcohol consumption levels. The streets here are narrower, the buildings are taller and more likely to collapse, and the general atmosphere suggests that the rule of law is more of a guideline than an actual enforcement mechanism. You pass a tavern where a philosophical discussion about chariot racing has escalated into a furniture throwing contest. Roman taverns are where democracy goes to die, usually loudly and with significant property damage. 2 blocks later, you encounter a group of young Roman men who appear to be engaged in what they probably consider recreational violence. They're taking turns wrestling each other while their friends provide commentary and beer. This is normal Roman evening entertainment for people who can't afford tickets to the gladiatorial games. They notice you passing, and one of them calls out, "Hey, leather worker, want to join the fun?" You politely decline because Roman recreational violence has a tendency to become non-recreational very quickly. Also, you're carrying sharp tools, and Roman crowds get nervous around sharp tools unless they're being used for entertainment purposes. They let you pass without incident, probably because you look like someone who has to work for a living rather than someone worth robbing. In Rome, appearing poor is often the best protection against crime, since criminals prefer targets who actually have something worth stealing. You navigate around a group of women who are engaged in what appears to be a complex business negotiation involving various personal services that Rome regulates but doesn't particularly discourage. Roman attitudes toward commerce are remarkably tolerant as long as everyone pays their taxes. 3 more blocks through increasingly narrow streets, past increasingly questionable establishments, and you finally reach your building. The same 6-story insulae where you started this morning, still standing despite all architectural evidence suggesting it shouldn't be. You climb the stairs carefully because Roman stairs are even more dangerous in the dark than they are in daylight. On the 3rd floor, you pass the apartment where someone is cooking fish, apparently by setting it on fire. On the 4th floor, you reach your own door, home sweet, structurally unsound home. You enter your apartment to find your family gathered around the single oil lamp that provides illumination for the evening. Your wife is mending clothes, your children are playing a game that involves small pottery pieces, and your mother-in-law is complaining about the smell from the apartment below. Marcus down there is cooking something that died weeks ago, she announces. In my day, people had standards about food freshness. Your mother-in-law has opinions about everything, and most of those opinions involve comparing the present unfavorably to the past. This is a common Roman perspective, possibly because the past is safely over and can't get any worse. Your wife looks up from her mending. How was work? There was a riot, you report. Bread prices again. She nods matter-of-factly. Roman wives develop a philosophical attitude toward urban violence because getting upset about every riot would be emotionally exhausting. Anyone hurt, she asks. Not in our neighborhood. The Praetorian Guard contained it before it got really destructive. Good, she says, returning to her mending. We can't afford to rebuild the shop right now. Roman family conversations often center around practical concerns like avoiding bankruptcy, injury, disease, or arrest. Romance is a luxury for people who don't have to worry about basic survival. Your children show you their game, which appears to involve recreating famous battles using pottery shards as soldiers. Roman children learn about violence early because Roman life is violent and preparation is important. This is the Battle of Cannae, your son explains, pointing to an arrangement of pottery pieces. The Romans are losing. Roman military history is full of instructive defeats that serve as educational examples for future generations. Romans believe that learning from failure is character building, possibly because they've had so much practice. Dinner is bread, olive oil, and whatever vegetables your wife managed to acquire at the market. Roman family meals are simple affairs focused on nutrition rather than flavor. The bread is still hard enough to use as a building material, but you've learned to soak it in oil until it reaches an edible consistency. The olive oil is relatively fresh, which means it only tastes slightly rancid. Roman preservation techniques are effective, but not particularly concerned with palatability. Your daughter reports on her day at school where she learned to read Latin poetry and calculate basic mathematics. Roman education emphasizes practical skills like literacy and numeracy because Romans believe ignorance is expensive. We read Virgil today, she announces, the part where Aeneas escapes from Troy. What did you think, you ask? It was exciting, but why didn't he just stay and fight? Roman children ask direct questions about heroic literature because Romans value practical thinking over romantic idealism. Sometimes running away is smarter than fighting, you explain, especially when your city is on fire and full of enemy soldiers. Oh, she says, satisfied with this pragmatic interpretation of classical literature. After dinner, your family prepares for bed. Roman evenings are short because oil for lamps is expensive and sleep is free. Everyone shares the same room because privacy is a luxury that requires extra space, and extra space costs extra money. You lie down on your straw mattress, listening to the sounds of evening Rome through the thin walls. Neighbors arguing, babies crying, the occasional crash of someone dropping something, and the distant sound of tavern customers singing badly. Your wife settles beside you, and your children curl up under their wool blankets. Your mother-in-law continues commenting on various neighborhood odors until she finally falls asleep mid-complaint. As you drift off, you reflect on the day's accomplishments. You woke up alive successfully, navigated dangerous streets, completed productive work, survived a riot, avoided arrest, and made it home without being robbed, injured, or accidentally conscripted into the army. In Rome, this counts as an exceptionally successful day. Tomorrow, you'll do it all again, assuming you wake up alive and your building hasn't collapsed during the night. Roman life is like that. An endless series of small victories over circumstances that are actively trying to kill you. But tonight, you're warm-fed and surrounded by family. Your shop is secure, your tools are safe, and you have enough work to keep you busy for the next few days. In the grand scheme of the Roman Empire, you're a tiny, insignificant citizen whose individual survival matters to almost no one. But you've survived another day in the greatest city in the world, and that's something to be proud of, even if you probably won't last much longer. Dawn breaks over Rome like a judicial verdict, inevitable, probably unpleasant, and impossible to appeal. You wake to the same delightful combination of sounds, smells, and sensations that greet every Roman morning church bells that sound like they're announcing the end of the world, the aroma of communal human existence, and the immediate awareness that every joint in your body has filed a formal complaint with your nervous system. But today feels different. There's something in the air beyond the usual mixture of smoke, sewage, and despair, something that suggests the universe has special plans for you, and those plans probably don't involve your continued comfort or safety. Your first clue comes from your wife, who is already awake and looking concerned. In Roman marriages, when your spouse looks concerned before breakfast, it usually means you're about to learn something that will make your day significantly more complicated. "There's a man downstairs asking for you," she says quietly, trying not to wake the children. "He says he's from the aedil's office." The aedils are Roman municipal officials responsible for various civic functions, including market regulation, public morality, and making the lives of ordinary citizens occasionally miserable through the enforcement of obscure regulations. When an aedil's representative comes looking for you personally, it's never because you've won a civic award. Did he say what he wants? You ask, already knowing that whatever he wants, you're not going to like it. "Something about your business license," she replies, confirming your suspicions about today's potential for disaster. Roman bureaucracy operates on the principle that all commercial activity should be regulated, taxed, and generally made as complicated as possible. Business licenses are supposed to be renewed annually, but the renewal process involves navigating a maze of offices, forms, fees, and officials who all have different ideas about what constitutes proper documentation. You get dressed quickly, which in Roman terms means putting on the same tunic you wore yesterday, because you only own one good tunic, and Roman laundry services are expensive and unreliable. As you prepare to go downstairs and face whatever bureaucratic nightmare awaits, your mother-in-law offers her traditional morning wisdom. "In my day, officials respected honest working people. Now they just look for excuses to cause trouble." She's probably right, but pointing this out won't make the official go away or reduce whatever fine he's planning to impose. You descend the treacherous stairs of your building, carefully avoiding the broken step on the third floor and the mysterious stain on the second floor that seems to be growing larger every day. In the building's entrance area, you find a thin man in a toga that marks him as a government official. He has the expression of someone who enjoys delivering bad news to people who can't afford to argue with him. "You are the leather worker?" he asks, consulting a wax tablet covered with scratches that presumably represent official records. "I am." You confirm, because lying to Roman officials is generally more expensive than telling the truth. "Your business license expired 6 months ago," he announces, with the satisfaction of someone who has discovered a technical violation that can be monetized. This is probably true. Roman record keeping is thorough when it comes to tracking violations and sporadic when it comes to sending renewal reminders. I wasn't notified. You say, which is also probably true, but completely irrelevant to Roman administrative law. Ignorance of regulations is not an excuse. He responds, quoting what is apparently the motto of Roman municipal government. The fine is 50 denarii payable immediately. 50 denarii is roughly 2 months' income for a craftsman. It's the kind of fine designed to ensure that people remember to renew their licenses, assuming they survive the economic impact of paying the fine. I don't have 50 denarii, you tell him honestly. Then your shop will be sealed until payment is made. He replies, producing an official seal and a length of rope. Roman bureaucracy comes prepared for all contingencies. This is a problem. Your shop is your source of income, and sealing it means you can't work, which means you can't earn money to pay the fine, which means your shop stays sealed indefinitely. It's a perfect example of Roman administrative logic. You consider your options. You could try to negotiate a payment plan, but Roman officials are generally not interested in installment arrangements. You could try to borrow the money, but borrowing money in Rome involves interest rates that would make modern loan sharks blush. You could try to argue that the fine is unfair, but fairness is not a recognized concept in Roman municipal law. Or you could try the one approach that sometimes works with Roman bureaucracy, personal connections. Perhaps we could discuss this matter over breakfast, you suggest. I know an excellent thermopolium nearby. The official's expression suggests he's calculating whether the potential benefit of a free meal outweighs the risk of being accused of corruption. In Rome, this is a complex calculation that depends on the quality of the food, the likelihood of being caught, and the current political climate. The food had better be exceptional, he says finally. Roman corruption is remarkably efficient when it operates through established social customs like hospitality. You escort the Adel's representative to the same thermopolium where you ate yesterday, hoping that Quintus has managed to acquire ingredients that won't actively poison a government official. Poisoning bureaucrats is considered poor form in Roman business circles, even when it's accidental. The morning crowd is lighter than usual, consisting mainly of merchants preparing for the day's business, and a few early rising citizens who believe that starting the day with wine is an excellent life strategy. Quintus greets you with the enthusiasm of someone who recognizes a repeat customer but can't quite remember whether you paid your bill last time. 2 bowls of the morning stew, you tell him, and your best wine. Quintus's best wine is still grape-flavored alcohol of questionable provenance, but it's marginally less likely to cause blindness than his regular wine. You find a table in the corner where you can conduct your negotiation with relative privacy. Roman business discussions often attract unwanted attention from people who either want to participate in the corruption or report it to higher authorities. The official, who introduces himself as Lucius Cornelius something or other, because Romans have complicated names that serve as a form of social identification, examines his stew with the expression of someone who is professionally required to eat questionable food. This is substantial, he says diplomatically. Quintus uses only the finest ingredients. You reply, which is technically true if you define finest as least likely to cause immediate death. As you eat, you begin the delicate process of Roman bureaucratic negotiation. This involves establishing common ground, demonstrating mutual respect, and gradually working toward a solution that allows both parties to maintain their dignity while resolving the immediate problem. Government service must be challenging, you observe. So many regulations to enforce, so many citizens to monitor. It's a burden, he agrees, especially when people don't appreciate the importance of proper documentation. Roman officials genuinely believed that bureaucracy serves an important social function, even when that function appears to be making everyone's life more difficult. Of course, honest craftsmen want to comply with all regulations. You continue. Sometimes the process is just complicated. Complicated, he repeats thoughtfully. Yes, the renewal process can be confusing for people who aren't familiar with administrative procedures. You're making progress. He's acknowledging that the system might be partially at fault, which opens the door for a negotiated settlement. Perhaps there's a way to resolve this matter that serves the interests of both proper regulation and continued commerce, you suggest. He considers this while chewing a piece of stew that requires significant effort to break down. Roman diplomacy often happens during meals because eating together establishes a bond of shared experience even when the experience is questionable food. The fine could be reduced, he says slowly, if the violation is considered a first offense resulting from administrative confusion rather than deliberate evasion. This is Roman bureaucratic language for "we can make a deal." What would constitute an appropriate resolution, you ask? 20 denarii, he suggests, plus immediate license renewal. 20 denarii is still a significant sum, but it's manageable if you can arrange payment terms. An immediate renewal means you won't face this problem again for another year. That seems reasonable. You agree, though I would need a few days to gather the full amount. 3 days, he says. After that, the full fine applies. Roman deadlines are generally non-negotiable, but 3 days gives you time to collect payment from customers, sell some inventory, or explore creative financing options. You shake hands on the agreement, which in Roman culture makes it as binding as any written contract. Personal honor is taken seriously in Roman business relationships, partly because violating agreements can result in social consequences that are worse than legal penalties. Thank you for your understanding. You tell him as you pay for breakfast. Thank you for the meal, he replies. And remember, keeping proper records prevents these complications. He's probably right, but Roman record-keeping requires literacy skills, organizational abilities, and attention to detail that are luxuries for people who spend most of their time trying not to starve. As you walk back to your shop together, you reflect on the morning's events. You've managed to reduce a crippling fine to a merely painful fee, maintained good relations with local authority, and learned an important lesson about Roman administrative compliance. The lesson is corruption works, but it has to be done politely. You open your shop feeling reasonably optimistic about resolving your bureaucratic problems, but Roman optimism is always premature. Today's first customer proves this by walking into your shop and immediately making your life significantly more complicated. She's clearly wealthy. Her stola is made of silk that probably cost more than you earn in a year. Her jewelry includes actual gold, rather than bronze painted to look like gold, and she's accompanied by 2 slaves who are better dressed than most free citizens. Wealthy Roman women are dangerous customers for small craftsmen. They have expensive tastes, specific opinions about quality, and the social connections to destroy your reputation if they're dissatisfied with your work. They also pay well when they pay at all, which isn't guaranteed, since wealthy Romans sometimes consider payment to be optional for social inferiors. I need custom sandals for my daughter's wedding, she announces without preamble. Roman aristocrats don't waste time on social pleasantries with people they consider to be in the service trades. Wedding commissions are both lucrative and terrifying. Romans take weddings seriously, which means the expectations for quality are impossibly high and the consequences for failure are catastrophic. When is the wedding, you ask, hoping she'll say next year or when the gods will it. 2 weeks. She replies, confirming your suspicions about today's potential for disaster. 2 weeks is not enough time to create custom wedding sandals that will satisfy a wealthy Roman matron's expectations. Custom leather work requires time for design material, acquisition, construction, fitting, and adjustment. Rushing the process guarantees problems. That's an ambitious timeline, you say diplomatically. Money is no object, she declares, which is what wealthy Romans say when they want to pretend that paying premium prices eliminates the constraints of physical reality. She proceeds to describe what she wants: sandals made from white leather, which has to be specially prepared and is difficult to work with, decorated with silver buckles which you'll have to commission from a metal worker, and featuring intricate stitching patterns which require advanced skills and careful planning. I want them to be perfect, she emphasizes. This is my daughter's wedding, and everything must be flawless. Roman mothers take their daughters' weddings personally. A successful wedding reflects well on the family's status and social connections. A wedding with imperfect footwear reflects poorly on the mother's attention to detail and ability to manage important events. You calculate the time, materials, and labor required for this commission. Even working day and night, you're not sure you can complete it to her standards within 2 weeks. But turning down wealthy customers is bad for business, and Roman business opportunities are too rare to waste. It will require premium materials and accelerated craftsmanship, you tell her. The cost would be substantial. How substantial, she asks. You quote a price that reflects both the complexity of the work and the impossibility of the timeline. It's roughly 6 months' normal income, which should either discourage her or provide enough profit to make the stress worthwhile. She doesn't even blink. Acceptable. I'll pay half now and half on delivery. Wealthy Romans really do live in a different economic universe from ordinary citizens. She produces a leather purse and counts out silver coins that represent more money than you usually see in a month. Roman silver is beautiful, clean, properly weighted, and stamped with images of emperors and gods that remind you of the power behind the currency. I'll need to see your daughter for measurements, you tell her. She'll be here this afternoon, the woman replies, and I'll want to approve the design before you begin construction. Roman quality control involves multiple layers of approval and revision, which protects against errors but also creates opportunities for scope, creep, and customer dissatisfaction. After she leaves, you sit in your shop contemplating what you've just committed to. 2 weeks to create perfect wedding sandals for a wealthy family that probably has connections throughout Roman society. If you succeed, your reputation will be established and future commissions will follow. If you fail, your reputation will be destroyed and future customers will avoid you. No pressure at all. You begin sketching preliminary designs, calculating material requirements, and mentally preparing for 2 weeks of intensive work with very little sleep. Roman entrepreneurship is not for the faint of heart. The daughter arrives that afternoon, accompanied by her mother, the same 2 well-dressed slaves, and what appears to be a small advisory committee of female relatives who all have opinions about wedding sandals. Roman women approach important purchases as group activities. Individual preferences are balanced against family expectations, social conventions, and the complex politics of Roman social status. Designing sandals for one person is challenging. Designing sandals that satisfy 6 people with different opinions is approaching impossible. The daughter is young, probably 16, with the kind of nervous energy that suggests she's excited about getting married but terrified about the ceremony. Roman weddings are elaborate public events that serve as demonstrations of family wealth, social connections, and adherence to traditional values. Everything has to be perfect because everyone will be watching. These will be my first real wedding sandals. She confides while you take measurements. I want them to be special. Young Roman brides have romantic notions about their wedding attire that don't always align with practical considerations like comfort, durability, or the limitations of leather craftsmanship. Her mother begins describing the wedding dress white silk with gold embroidery, a traditional veil and jewelry that includes family heirlooms dating back 3 generations. The sandals need to complement this ensemble while being comfortable enough for a ceremony that will last several hours. The leather must be pure white, insists one of the aunts. Colored leather would be inappropriate for a virgin bride. But white leather shows every mark object's another relative. Maybe ivory would be more practical. Ivory isn't traditional, counters a third family member. White has always been proper for weddings. Roman family discussions about important decisions often resemble legislative debates complete with competing factions and appeals to precedent. You listen carefully while taking detailed measurements. The daughter has small feet, which limits the space available for decorative elements. She also has a slight tendency to favor her right foot, which means the sandals need to be balanced to prevent discomfort during long periods of standing. What about the stitching pattern? Asks the mother. I've seen designs with flowers, geometric patterns, and traditional Roman symbols. You show her several examples from your previous work. Roman decorative stitching is an art form that requires precision, creativity, and an understanding of symbolic meaning. Different patterns convey different messages about the wearer's social status, family heritage, and personal values. I like the vine pattern, says the daughter, pointing to a design that features stylized grapevines and leaves. It symbolizes fertility and abundance. Vines are very popular, agrees her mother, but perhaps something more unique would be appropriate. You suggest a custom pattern that combines traditional Roman symbols with elements that reflect the family's particular heritage. This approach satisfies the requirement for uniqueness while maintaining appropriate symbolism. The discussion continues for nearly an hour, covering every aspect of the design from the placement of buckles to the thickness of the leather straps. Roman custom work involves extensive consultation because the final product reflects not just the craftsman's skill, but the customer's taste and social understanding. Finally, they reach consensus on a design that satisfies everyone's requirements while remaining within the bounds of technical possibility. You sketch the final design and review the timeline for completion. 2 weeks, you confirm. The sandals will be ready for final fitting one day before the wedding. Perfect, says the mother. And remember, they must be flawless. This wedding will be remembered for years. Roman social events create lasting impressions that affect family reputation for generations. Wedding sandals might seem like a minor detail, but in Roman society, minor details often have major social consequences. After they leave you, review your notes and begin planning the work schedule. 2 weeks to create perfect wedding sandals while maintaining your regular business and paying off your bureaucratic fine. Roman life is essentially a series of overlapping deadlines, each one more stressful than the last. Creating perfect wedding sandals begins with acquiring perfect materials, which in Rome is an adventure that combines commerce, diplomacy, and blind luck. Roman supply chains are miracles of logistics when they work and complete disasters when they don't. And today you need them to work flawlessly. Your first stop is Marcus, the leather dealer, whose shop occupies the ground floor of a building that smells like every animal that has ever existed. Marcus specializes in providing quality materials to craftsmen who can afford to pay premium prices for reliable goods. I need white leather, you tell him. Perfect white, no marks, no flaws, enough for custom wedding sandals. Marcus considers this request with the expression of someone who has been asked to produce snowflakes in summer. White leather, he repeats thoughtfully, for a wedding. When do you need it? Today, if possible. The wedding is in 2 weeks. Ah. Marcus nods with the understanding of someone who regularly deals with impossible customer demands. Wedding deadlines. I have some white leather, but it's expensive. Everything in Rome is expensive when you need it quickly because Romans understand the economic principles of supply, demand, and panic. He shows you several pieces of white leather each with different qualities and prices. The best piece is beautiful. Pure white, soft texture, minimal grain marks, but costs enough to feed a family for a month. This is goat leather from Hispania, Marcus explains, specially prepared using traditional methods. Very difficult to work with, but the results are exceptional. Roman leather preparation is a complex art that involves timing, chemistry, and considerable skill. White leather is particularly challenging because any mistake in the process shows clearly on the finished product. I'll take it, you decide, because wedding commissions require the best materials regardless of cost. Marcus also sells you silver thread for decorative stitching, bronze buckles that can be plated with silver, and several smaller pieces of leather for practice and backup. The total cost represents a significant investment, but Roman business operates on the principle that you have to spend money to make money. Your next stop is Gaius the metal worker, who specializes in decorative hardware for luxury goods. Roman metalwork is an art form that combines functionality with beauty, creating pieces that serve practical purposes while demonstrating the owner's refined taste. I need silver buckles for wedding sandals, you tell Gaius. Small, elegant, strong enough for regular use. Gaius examines your design sketches and makes suggestions about buckle placement and sizing. Roman metalworkers understand how their products integrate with other crafts, and good metalworkers provide advice that improves the overall project. Silver is expensive right now, he warns. Supply problems from the mines in Hispania. But I can make beautiful buckles using bronze with silver plating. Almost as good as solid silver, much more affordable. Roman economics are constantly affected by supply chain disruptions from distant provinces. Mining operations, shipping schedules, and political stability in faraway places directly impact the cost of materials in Rome. You agree to the silver-plated bronze option, which provides the appearance of luxury at a fraction of the cost. Roman pragmatism often involves finding ways to achieve desired results without bankrupting yourself. Gaius promises to have the buckles ready within 3 days, which gives you time to begin work on the leather components while waiting for the hardware. Your final stop is Julia, the thread dealer, who sells specialized materials for decorative work. Roman decorative stitching requires threads made from specific materials in particular colors, and finding exactly what you need often involves visiting multiple suppliers. Silver thread for wedding sandals, you explain. Bright strong won't tarnish quickly. Julia examines your design requirements and recommends a thread made from silver wire wrapped around silk core. It's expensive, but provides the strength needed for structural stitching combined with the appearance required for decorative work. This thread is imported from the East, she explains. Very high quality, but the supply is limited. I can give you enough for 1 pair of sandals, maybe 2 if you're careful. Roman international trade brings exotic materials to the city, but exotic materials come with exotic prices and limited availability. You purchase enough thread for the wedding sandals, plus a small amount extra for practice and repairs. Roman craftsmen always buy more materials than they think they need because running out of critical supplies during a deadline project is a form of professional suicide. By the end of the day, you've acquired all the materials needed for the wedding commission. The total cost represents nearly half of what the customer is paying, which is typical for luxury Roman goods. Roman craftsmanship is expensive, Because Roman materials are expensive, Roman labor is skilled, and Roman customers expect perfection. With materials acquired and design finalized, you begin the actual construction of the wedding sandals. Roman leather work requires patience, precision, and the ability to maintain quality standards while working under extreme time pressure. You start by creating paper patterns based on the measurements you took from the bride. Roman pattern making is a critical skill because leather is too expensive to waste on mistakes. Every cut must be perfect, every measurement exact. The white leather is beautiful but challenging to work with. It shows every mark, every slight imperfection in cutting or stitching. Roman white leather is unforgiving material that punishes any lack of skill or attention to detail. You begin by cutting the sole pieces using your sharpest knife and working with the careful precision of a surgeon. Roman leather cutting requires understanding how the material will stretch, bend, and age over time. You're not just creating sandals for the wedding day, you're creating footwear that will last for years. Next come the straps, which must be cut to exact specifications to ensure proper fit and comfort. Roman sandal straps serve both functional and decorative purposes, providing support while creating visual appeal. Getting the proportions wrong ruins both the appearance and the usability of the finished product. The cutting process takes most of the first day because Roman craftsmanship values precision over speed. Each piece must be perfect before you can move to the next stage of construction. While you work, your regular customers continue to visit your shop. The soldier returns to collect his repaired belt, expressing satisfaction with your work and paying without argument. Roman military customers are ideal clients. They understand quality, pay promptly, and don't make unreasonable demands. A merchant stops by to commission a new leather satchel for carrying important documents. Roman business accessories must be both functional and impressive, serving as symbols of professional success while protecting valuable materials. Nothing too fancy, he specifies. Just good quality leather that will last and look respectable in client meetings. You take his measurements and agree on a delivery date that won't interfere with the wedding sandal deadline. Roman time management involves carefully balancing multiple commitments to avoid disappointing any customers. As evening approaches, you begin the delicate process of punching holes for the decorative stitching. This work requires absolute precision because mistakes are permanent and replacement materials are expensive. Roman hole punching uses specialized awls that create clean openings without tearing the leather. The spacing must be exact to ensure the stitching pattern aligns properly and the decorative elements are symmetrical. You work by lamplight, which provides adequate illumination but creates eye strain after several hours. Roman craftsmen often develop vision problems from working in poor lighting conditions, but artificial light is expensive and daylight hours are limited. By the end of the first day, you've completed the cutting and hole punching for both sandals. Tomorrow, you'll begin the assembly process, which requires different skills and presents new opportunities for catastrophic mistakes. Roman craftsmanship is essentially a series of opportunities to ruin expensive materials through momentary lapses in concentration. The second day begins with the complex process of assembling the cut leather pieces into functional sandals. Roman assembly work requires understanding how different materials interact, how stress points distribute force, and how small adjustments affect overall fit and comfort. You start with the soles, which must be layered and stitched to create a foundation that provides support while maintaining flexibility. Roman sole construction uses multiple layers of leather, each serving a specific purpose and requiring particular stitching techniques. The bottom layer is thick, durable leather that resists wear from contact with stone streets. The middle layer provides cushioning and shape. The top layer is soft leather that feels comfortable against the foot while looking attractive. Joining these layers requires careful stitching that penetrates all three pieces without creating weak points or uncomfortable ridges. Roman stitching techniques have been refined over generations to create strong, comfortable, and beautiful joints. You use the silver thread for the visible stitching, which requires extra care because silver thread is more delicate than regular thread and shows every imperfection. Roman decorative stitching must be both functional and beautiful, serving structural purposes while creating visual appeal. The pattern you've chosen combines traditional Roman vine motifs with geometric elements that reflect the family's particular heritage. Each stitch must be placed exactly to maintain the pattern's integrity and ensure the symbolic meaning is clearly conveyed. Roman symbolic stitching is a form of communication that conveys messages about the wearer's social status, family connections, and personal values. Getting the symbolism wrong can create social embarrassment or worse, unintended insults. As you work, you become aware of activity in the street outside. Voices are raised in what sounds like another political discussion, but the tone suggests this one might be more serious than usual. You continue stitching while listening to the conversation. Two groups of Romans are debating the merits of different chariot racing teams, which in Rome is serious business that often reflects deeper political and social divisions. The Blues are obviously superior, someone shouts. They've won 3 of the last 5 races. The Greens have better horses, responds another voice. Speed isn't everything. Roman chariot racing is popular entertainment that serves as an outlet for political tensions. Citizens can express opinions about team preferences that would be dangerous to express about political leaders. The discussion continues with increasing passion, but remains within the bounds of acceptable public discourse. No one has started throwing things yet, which suggests this will remain a verbal dispute rather than escalating to physical violence. You finish stitching the soles and begin attaching the straps. This is the most critical part of the assembly process because the straps must be positioned accurately to ensure proper fit while maintaining the visual balance of the design. Roman strap attachment requires understanding foot anatomy, stress distribution, and the way different materials stretch and change shape over time. The sandals must fit perfectly on the wedding day and continue fitting comfortably as the leather softens with use. You work slowly and carefully, checking the fit repeatedly against the patterns you created from the bride's measurements. Roman custom work allows no margin for error because there's no opportunity to make adjustments after the customer takes delivery. As you attach the decorative elements, you think about the wedding ceremony these sandals will attend. Roman weddings are elaborate social events that demonstrate family wealth status and adherence to traditional values. Every detail of the bride's appearance will be scrutinized by guests who understand the social significance of choices in fabric color and decoration. The sandals must not only be beautiful and comfortable, they must convey the right messages about the bride's family background, personal character, and readiness for marriage. Roman fashion is a complex language that communicates social information to anyone who understands the cultural codes. By the end of the second day, you've completed the basic assembly of both sandals. Tomorrow, you'll add the silver buckles, complete the decorative stitching, and begin the fitting process. Roman progress is measured in small, careful steps that gradually build toward a final result that justifies the effort invested. The third day brings your first major crisis. Gaius, the metalworker, sends word that he's having problems with the silver buckles. The message arrives via a street child who specializes in carrying communications between businesses, which is the Roman equivalent of email with significantly less reliability. Gaius says the silver plating isn't working right, the child reports. He needs more time. This is the kind of news that makes Roman craftsmen question their life choices. You're working under an impossible deadline, using expensive materials, and depending on suppliers who have their own complications and problems. You close your shop temporarily and hurry to Gaius's workshop, which occupies a basement space that smells like hot metal acid solutions and industrial accidents waiting to happen. Roman metalworking involves processes that are impressive when they work and dangerous when they don't. Gaius is hunched over his workbench, examining small bronze buckles with the expression of someone who is professionally frustrated. Roman artisans take pride in their work, and technical problems are personal insults to their competence. The silver won't adhere properly, he explains. Something about the bronze composition. Maybe the alloy is wrong. Maybe the surface preparation isn't right. I've tried 3 different approaches. Roman metallurgy is part science, part art, and part guesswork. Even experienced craftsmen encounter problems that have no obvious solutions. How long to fix it? You ask, dreading the answer. Maybe 2 days, maybe a week. Silver plating is temperamental. This is a disaster. The wedding is in 10 days, and you need the buckles to complete the sandals. Roman supply chain failures have a cascading effect that can destroy entire projects. What about solid silver buckles, you suggest? Expensive, very expensive, and I'd have to order the silver from a specialist dealer. Roman silver is beautiful, but costly, especially when you need it quickly from suppliers who understand the economics of emergency orders. You calculate the additional cost against the profit from the commission. Solid silver buckles will eliminate most of your profit, but completing the project successfully is more important than maximizing income. Roman business reputation is built on reliability, and reputation is more valuable than money. Order the silver you decide, whatever it costs. Gaius nods with the understanding of someone who has faced similar crises. Roman craftsmen support each other during emergencies because today's crisis could be tomorrow's opportunity for mutual assistance. I'll send the order today. The silver should arrive in 3 days, and I can have the buckles finished the day after that. And this gives you 4 more days of work on the leather components while waiting for the hardware. Roman project management involves constant adjustment to accommodate supplier problems and changing circumstances. You return to your shop and spend the rest of the day on detail work that doesn't require the buckles. Roman craftsmanship includes many small tasks that can be completed while waiting for critical materials. The decorative stitching continues, each stitch requiring careful placement to maintain the pattern's integrity. The vine motifs are taking shape, creating the impression of living plants growing across the leather surface. Roman decorative patterns often incorporate natural elements that symbolize positive qualities like fertility, abundance, and growth. Wedding sandals should embody optimistic themes that reflect hopes for the marriage's future success. As you work, you reflect on the complexities of Roman commerce. Every project involves multiple suppliers, each with their own challenges and complications. Success requires not just craftsmanship skills, but also vendor management, crisis resolution, and the ability to adapt quickly when problems arise. Roman entrepreneurship is not for people who expect things to go according to plan. Your 4th day begins with a visit from the bride's mother, who arrives in a state of barely controlled panic that suggests something has gone seriously wrong with the wedding preparations. "The dress is ruined," she announces dramatically. "The seamstress spilled wine on the silk, and now we need new fabric, and the weaver says it will take 3 weeks, and the wedding is in 9 days. Roman women approach wedding crises with the intensity that Roman generals reserve for military emergencies. Every problem is potentially catastrophic, and every setback threatens the entire event. What does this mean for the sandals? You ask, fearing that you're about to learn that all your work has been wasted. We're changing the color scheme, she declares. Instead of white and gold, we're doing cream and silver. The sandals need to match. This is the kind of last-minute change that makes Roman craftsmen consider careers in farming or military service. You've spent 3 days creating white sandals with gold accents, and now she wants cream sandals with silver accents. Cream leather is possible, you tell her carefully, but it will require starting over with new materials. Money is no object, she repeats, which is what wealthy Romans say when they want to believe that financial resources can solve physical impossibilities. You explain that starting over means additional time, additional materials, and additional cost. Roman custom work operates on the principle that changes after production begins are expensive and complicated. How much additional time, she asks. At least a week, probably more. But the wedding is in 9 days. Roman mathematics doesn't change just because customers want it to. Physical constraints apply to wealthy Romans just like everyone else, though they're sometimes reluctant to accept this reality. You consider the options. The white sandals are nearly complete and would work with the original color scheme. Cream sandals would match the new dress but can't be finished in time. Compromise solutions might satisfy neither requirement. What if we modify the existing sandals, you suggest? I could add silver accents to complement the new dress while keeping the white leather. She considers this proposal with the expression of someone who is trying to salvage a situation that has spiraled beyond her control. Show me what that would look like, she says. You sketch a design that incorporates silver thread, silver buckles, and silver decorative elements while maintaining the white leather base. The result would be elegant and appropriate for the new color scheme. It's not what I originally envisioned, she admits, but it could work, and it would be finished on time. Yes, assuming the silver buckles arrive as scheduled. Roman project management often involves finding creative solutions that satisfy customer requirements while working within physical and temporal constraints. She agrees to the modified design, and you adjust your work plan accordingly. Instead of starting over, you'll enhance the existing sandals to match the new color scheme. This approach saves time, reduces cost, and minimizes risk, while still creating sandals that will complement the bride's new dress. Roman problem-solving emphasizes practical solutions over perfect solutions, because perfect solutions often aren't possible within the available constraints. With 6 days remaining until the wedding, you enter the intensive phase of the project. Roman deadline management requires working longer hours, maintaining quality standards, and resisting the temptation to take shortcuts that compromise the final result. Your daily routine changes to accommodate the increased workload. You open the shop before dawn and work until late evening, taking breaks only for essential activities like eating, sleeping, and avoiding death from exhaustion. Roman work schedules are flexible when circumstances require intensive effort. Craftsmen understand that some projects demand temporary sacrifices in exchange for long-term benefits. The silver buckles arrive on schedule, and they're beautiful, perfectly crafted, properly proportioned, and finished to a standard that reflects Gaius's skill and professionalism. Roman metalwork at its finest demonstrates why the empire's luxury goods are valued throughout the known world. You begin the delicate process of attaching the buckles to the sandals. This requires precise positioning to ensure both functional effectiveness and visual balance. Roman hardware installation is a skill that combines mechanical understanding with aesthetic judgment. The buckles must be strong enough to withstand daily use while being small enough to maintain the sandal's elegant proportions. They must open and close smoothly while remaining securely fastened during normal activities. As you work on the buckle installation, you add the silver thread accents that will tie the sandals to the new color scheme. Roman color coordination is subtle art that requires understanding how different materials interact under various lighting conditions. Silver thread catches light differently than gold thread, creating highlights and shadows that change the sandal's appearance throughout the day. Wedding sandals must look beautiful in morning sunlight, afternoon shade, and evening lamplight. The decorative stitching is nearly complete, and the vine pattern is emerging as a sophisticated design that balances traditional Roman symbolism with contemporary aesthetic preferences. Each stitch is placed with the precision of someone who understands that this work will be scrutinized by people who appreciate fine craftsmanship. Roman decorative work is evaluated by experts who can distinguish between competent execution and exceptional artistry. Wedding commissions are viewed by guests, who include other craftsmen, wealthy customers, and social arbiters whose opinions influence future business opportunities. By the end of the 5th day, the sandals are nearly complete. Only the final fitting and minor adjustments remain, plus the detailed finishing work that distinguishes professional craftsmanship from amateur effort. Roman progress toward completion is satisfying when everything goes according to plan, which happens rarely enough to make successful projects feel like personal victories. The bride arrives for her final fitting, accompanied by the usual advisory committee of female relatives, all of whom have opinions about how wedding sandals should fit, look, and function. Roman fittings are social events that combine practical assessment with family bonding. Everyone participates in evaluating the craftsman's work, offering suggestions for improvement, and ensuring that the final product meets family standards. The bride sits on a wooden stool while you carefully place the sandals on her feet. Roman fitting procedures require understanding how different foot shapes interact with various strap configurations and how leather stretches and adjusts over time. They feel comfortable, she reports, which is the first requirement for successful footwear. The color matches the new dress perfectly. Observes her mother, confirming that the silver accents successfully complement the changed color scheme. The stitching is beautiful, adds one of the aunts, appreciating the decorative work that transforms functional sandals into art objects. Roman customer satisfaction involves multiple criteria that must all be met simultaneously. Comfort, appearance quality, and symbolic appropriateness are equally important factors in evaluating custom work. You make minor adjustments to the strap positioning, ensuring that the sandals provide secure support without creating pressure points that would cause discomfort during the long wedding ceremony. Roman weddings involve hours of standing, walking, and ceremonial activities that test footwear comfort under challenging conditions. Wedding sandals must remain comfortable throughout an entire day of celebration. The bride walks around your shop testing how the sandals feel during normal movement. Roman gait analysis is informal but effective. Experienced craftsmen can identify fit problems by observing how customers walk in new footwear. "Perfect," she declares. "They feel like they were made for my feet." This is exactly what you want to hear, because Roman custom work is supposed to fit like a second skin while providing better protection and support than nature originally provided. The family examines the decorative elements, evaluating the quality of the stitching, the placement of the silver accents, and the overall aesthetic impact. Roman artistic judgment is sophisticated and demanding, reflecting generations of exposure to high-quality craftsmanship. "These are the most beautiful sandals I've ever seen," the bride tells you, which is the kind of customer feedback that makes the stress and effort worthwhile. Roman customer praise is especially meaningful when it comes from people who can afford the best and choose to work with your business despite having many other options. Payment is completed without argument or negotiation. The mother counts out silver coins that represent successful completion of the most challenging commission you've ever undertaken. Roman business transactions end with mutual satisfaction when both parties fulfill their obligations completely and professionally. As the family leaves with the completed sandals, you reflect on what you've accomplished. In less than 2 weeks, you've created custom wedding footwear that satisfies demanding customers while maintaining the quality standards that protect your professional reputation. Roman craftsmanship success requires skills materials, time management, crisis resolution, and considerable luck. Today, all of these factors work together to create a result that everyone can be proud of. 2 days later, you receive an invitation to attend the wedding ceremony. Roman craftsmen are sometimes invited to important family events when their work contributes significantly to the occasion's success. The wedding takes place at the family's villa outside Rome in gardens that have been decorated for the ceremony with flowers, banners, and temporary structures that transform the space into a celebration venue. Roman weddings are community events that serve multiple social functions beyond uniting two individuals. They demonstrate family wealth, strengthen political alliances, and provide entertainment for extended social networks. You arrive early enough to observe the preparations and see how your sandals integrate with the overall wedding aesthetic. Roman event planning is comprehensive, covering every detail from floral arrangements to musical entertainment. The bride appears radiant in her cream silk dress with silver embroidery. Your sandals complement the outfit perfectly, providing elegant footwear that enhances rather than competing with the dress's beauty. Roman bridal fashion is sophisticated art that balances tradition with contemporary style, creating looks that honor cultural heritage while expressing individual personality. The ceremony proceeds according to ancient Roman traditions that have been refined over generations. Religious elements. Legal formalities and social celebrations combine to create an event that satisfies spiritual, practical, and entertainment requirements. Throughout the long ceremony, you observe that the bride appears comfortable and confident. The sandals are performing their function perfectly, providing support and protection while looking beautiful and feeling comfortable. Roman wedding footwear must endure hours of standing, walking, and dancing without causing discomfort or visible wear. Your sandals pass this test successfully. During the reception, several guests compliment the bride's appearance and specifically mention the beautiful sandals. Roman social networking operates through conversations about fashion craftsmanship and personal style preferences. "Who made those lovely sandals?" asks one wealthy matron. "I need new footwear for my daughter's engagement party." Roman word-of-mouth marketing is the most effective way to build a luxury crafts business. Satisfied customers recommend your work to their social connections, creating opportunities for future commissions. By the end of the celebration, you've collected contact information from 3 potential customers and established your reputation as a craftsman capable of creating wedding-quality footwear under challenging deadlines. Roman business development happens through successful project completion and social networking at events where your work can be observed and evaluated by people who appreciate quality craftsmanship. The weeks following the wedding bring a stream of new customers seeking custom footwear for their own special occasions. Roman social networks are efficient communication systems that rapidly spread information about craftsmen who successfully complete high-profile commissions. Your first new customer is the wealthy matron who inquired about the sandals at the wedding reception. She wants custom shoes for her daughter's engagement party, and she's willing to pay premium prices for guaranteed quality. "I was impressed by your work at the wedding," she tells you. The bride's sandals were exceptional, comfortable, beautiful, and perfectly appropriate for the occasion. Roman customer recommendations are powerful endorsements that carry more weight than any form of advertising. Personal testimonials from satisfied clients establish credibility and justify premium pricing. However, success in Roman luxury crafts brings unexpected challenges. Your shop is now too small for the increased business, your current tools are inadequate for the volume of work, and your material suppliers are having difficulty meeting your expanded requirements. Roman business growth requires capital investment, expanded facilities, and enhanced capabilities that strain resources and complicate operations. You begin looking for a larger workshop space, which in Rome means navigating a real estate market that operates on principles of scarcity, speculation, and social connections. Available commercial space is limited, expensive, and often controlled by landlords who have particular opinions about appropriate tenants. You want to rent the ground floor workshop, asks Lucius, the building owner. What kind of business? Custom leather goods, you explain. High-quality footwear and accessories for wealthy clients. Wealthy clients, he repeats thoughtfully. Wealthy clients mean regular payments and no trouble with authorities. Roman landlords prefer tenants whose businesses attract respectable customers and generate steady income. Luxury crafts are considered desirable commercial activities that enhance neighborhood reputation. The rent is 3 times what you currently pay, but the space is twice as large and includes storage areas, better lighting, and direct street access that makes customer visits more convenient. Roman commercial real estate operates on the principle that location, visibility, and amenities justify premium pricing. You agree to the lease terms and begin planning the transition to expanded facilities. This involves moving tools, materials, and inventory while maintaining service to existing customers and accepting new commissions. Roman business expansion is complicated by the need to maintain operations during the transition process. Your increased business volume requires additional help, which means finding and training an apprentice who can assist with routine tasks while learning the craft. Roman apprenticeship is a traditional system that provides young people with marketable skills while giving experienced craftsmen additional productive capacity. However, finding suitable apprentices involves challenges that go beyond simple hiring decisions. Roman apprentices become part of your household, requiring supervision, training, and moral guidance that extends far beyond workplace instruction. Your first candidate is Marcus, a 16-year-old whose father wants him to learn a respectable trade. Roman fathers take apprenticeship decisions seriously because their son's future economic prospects depend on acquiring valuable skills. He's a good boy, the father assures you. Hardworking, honest, follows instructions. He can read and write, and he's good with his hands. Roman apprentices need basic literacy, manual dexterity, and the temperament for detailed work. They also need family backgrounds that suggest they'll complete their training without causing problems. You interview Marcus, testing his ability to follow instructions, his attention to detail, and his understanding of the commitment involved in learning a craft. Apprenticeship takes 3 years, you explain. The first year you'll do basic tasks like cutting patterns and preparing materials. The second year you'll learn stitching and assembly. The third year you'll work on complete projects under supervision. Roman craft training is systematic and progressive, building skills gradually while providing increasing responsibility and independence. What happens after apprenticeship? Marcus asks. You'll be qualified to work as a journeyman in any leather workshop, or you can start your own business if you have the capital and customers. Roman apprenticeship leads to economic independence and social respectability for young people who complete their training successfully. Marcus agrees to the apprenticeship terms and you begin the process of training your first assistant. This involves teaching not just technical skills, but also business practices, customer relations, and professional standards. Roman apprenticeship is education in both craft and commerce, preparing young people for independent careers in competitive markets. The first weeks are challenging as Marcus learns basic tasks while you adjust to having help in your workshop. Roman craft instruction requires patience, clear communication, and the ability to correct mistakes without discouraging learning. Hold the awl perpendicular to the leather, you demonstrate. Consistent angle creates uniform holes that make stitching easier. Roman technical instruction emphasizes precision and consistency because small variations in basic techniques create compounding problems in finished products. Marcus is eager to learn and make steady progress under your guidance. Roman apprentices who show aptitude and dedication often become valuable assistants who contribute significantly to business operations. Your growing reputation attracts the attention of increasingly important customers, including members of families with connections to the imperial court. Roman social hierarchies create opportunities for craftsmen who establish reputations for quality and reliability. A messenger arrives at your workshop, bearing an invitation that changes everything. Quintus Flavius Maximus requests your presence to discuss a commission for the imperial household. Imperial commissions are the pinnacle of Roman craft careers. They provide unparalleled prestige, substantial income, and the kind of social recognition that establishes permanent reputation. However, imperial work also involves risks that can destroy careers if anything goes wrong. Roman emperors and their households have expectations that make wealthy merchants seem easy to please. You close your shop and travel to Maximus's villa, which occupies an entire city block and demonstrates the kind of wealth that comes from successful imperial service. Roman imperial officials live in luxury that reflects their proximity to ultimate power and their ability to profit from that relationship. Maximus receives you in a reception room decorated with artwork, furniture, and luxury goods that represent the finest craftsmanship from throughout the empire. I've heard excellent reports about your work, he begins. The wedding sandals you created for the Cornelius family were exceptional. Roman reputation travels through social networks that connect wealthy families throughout the city. Excellence in one commission creates opportunities for increasingly prestigious work. The emperor's niece is getting married, Maximus continues. She wants custom sandals created by Rome's finest craftsmen. Your name was recommended. This is the kind of opportunity that Roman craftsmen dream about but rarely receive. Imperial family commissions establish reputations that last for generations. The requirements are specific, Maximus warns. The leather must be purple, the decoration must include gold thread and precious stones, and the design must reflect both traditional Roman values and contemporary imperial style. Purple leather is exotic, expensive, and technically challenging to work with. Gold thread requires specialized handling techniques. Precious stones demand setting skills that combine leatherwork with jewelry craftsmanship. The timeline is 6 weeks, he adds. The wedding is scheduled for the Ides of Julius. 6 weeks for an imperial commission is generous compared to your recent experience, but the technical requirements are far more demanding than anything you've attempted. The compensation will reflect the importance of the work. Maximus concludes, naming a sum that represents more than a year's normal income. Roman imperial commissions are profitable enough to justify extraordinary efforts and expensive materials. You accept the commission, understanding that success will establish your reputation permanently, while failure could destroy your business and possibly your freedom. Roman imperial service offers great rewards and great risks in equal measure. Creating sandals for an imperial wedding begins with acquiring materials that exist at the intersection of luxury and impossibility. Purple leather is rare because purple dye is expensive, difficult to work with, and traditionally reserved for use by the imperial family and highest-ranking officials. Your search for purple leather takes you into the rarefied world of Roman luxury trade, where merchants specialize in materials that most people never see and could never afford. Purple leather muses Antonius dealer in exotic materials. For imperial use, I assume no one else can afford it and no one else is allowed to use it. Roman sumptuary laws restrict the use of certain colors, materials, and decorations to people of appropriate social rank. Purple is particularly regulated because it symbolizes imperial authority. I have some purple goat leather from the East, Antonius continues, dyed with murex shells using traditional Phoenician techniques. Very expensive, very beautiful, very limited supply. Murex purple is the finest quality purple dye extracted from sea snails found in specific Mediterranean locations. The dyeing process is complex, time-consuming, and produces colors that fade slowly while maintaining intensity. The cost is breathtaking, more than you typically spend on materials for an entire year of normal commissions. But imperial work requires imperial materials regardless of cost. I'll take what you have, you decide, because finding alternative sources would take weeks and might not yield better quality. You'll also need gold thread, Antonius observes, and I assume precious stones for decoration. Gold thread is easier to obtain than purple leather, but requires special handling to prevent tarnishing and breakage. The thread is made from actual gold wire wrapped around silk cores, creating material that's beautiful but fragile. For precious stones, Antonius recommends pearls and sapphires that complement purple leather while reflecting imperial taste for sophisticated luxury. Pearls from the Red Sea, he suggests. Sapphires from India, both traditional choices for imperial jewelry. Roman imperial fashion draws from the entire known world, incorporating the finest materials and craftsmanship available anywhere in the empire. The total cost of materials approaches half the commission fee, but imperial work operates on different economic principles than normal business. Roman luxury crafts require substantial investment in materials because the quality of inputs directly affects the prestige of outputs. With materials secured, you begin planning the design and construction process. Imperial sandals must satisfy technical requirements while conveying appropriate symbolic messages about power, tradition, and cultural sophistication. Roman imperial fashion is political art that communicates messages about the wearer's status, the empire's wealth, and the continuity of traditional values. Creating sandals for an imperial wedding requires balancing artistic vision with political symbolism while meeting technical requirements that push the boundaries of leather craftsmanship. The design must honor traditional Roman values while incorporating contemporary imperial style. It must be beautiful enough to satisfy sophisticated aesthetic judgment while being comfortable enough for extended ceremonial wear. Roman imperial fashion operates at the intersection of art, politics, and practical functionality. You begin by researching traditional Roman symbolic motifs that are appropriate for imperial use. Eagles, laurel wreaths, SPQR inscriptions, and geometric patterns that reference classical architectural elements. Roman symbolism is sophisticated visual language that conveys complex messages about power, legitimacy, and cultural continuity. The challenge is incorporating these symbolic elements into a design that works with purple leather and gold decoration while maintaining the elegant proportions essential for beautiful footwear. Roman design process involves multiple iterations and careful refinement to achieve results that satisfy both aesthetic and functional requirements. You create preliminary sketches that explore different approaches to combining traditional symbols with contemporary styling. Some designs emphasize classical restraint, others embrace imperial opulence. Roman artistic judgment requires understanding your audience and creating work that matches their expectations while exceeding their previous experience. Marcus, your apprentice proves helpful in evaluating design options from the perspective of someone who represents the next generation of Roman craftsmen. This design feels too busy, he observes about one option. Too many elements competing for attention. This one is too simple, he says about another. It doesn't look imperial enough. Roman design criticism is valuable when it comes from people who understand both technical constraints and aesthetic principles. Through collaboration and refinement, you develop a design that balances traditional symbolism with contemporary elegance. Stylized eagles frame the ankles, laurel wreaths decorate the straps, and geometric patterns create visual interest without overwhelming the overall composition. Roman imperial design succeeds when it appears effortlessly sophisticated while demonstrating extraordinary skill and attention to detail. The gold thread will create highlights that emphasize the symbolic elements, while the pearls and sapphires will serve as focal points that draw attention without dominating the composition. Roman luxury decoration enhances rather than overwhelming the underlying design, creating pieces that remain beautiful even when viewed closely. With the design finalized, you begin the complex process of transferring patterns to the purple leather and starting construction of what may be the most important commission of your career. Roman imperial work represents the pinnacle of craft achievement and the ultimate test of professional capability. Working with purple leather reveals why imperial commissions are both prestigious and terrifying. The material is beautiful, but unforgiving, showing every imperfection and punishing any mistake in handling or construction. Purple dye affects leather texture in subtle ways that change how cutting, stitching, and shaping techniques work. Methods that produce excellent results with normal leather create unexpected problems with imperial materials. Roman luxury materials require modified techniques and enhanced skills that push craftsmen beyond their normal capabilities. Your first attempt at cutting the sole pieces results in slight irregularities that would be acceptable for normal work but are glaringly obvious against the rich purple background. Roman imperial standards require perfection that exceeds normal commercial quality by significant margins. You start over using your finest cutting tools and working with the concentration of a surgeon performing delicate surgery. Every cut must be precise, every edge must be smooth, every curve must be exactly matched between left and right pieces. Roman precision work requires mental focus and physical control that can be sustained only for limited periods before fatigue creates errors. The gold thread proves even more challenging than expected. It's beautiful but fragile, prone to breaking if handled roughly, and difficult to maintain at consistent tension during stitching. Roman gold thread requires techniques that balance strength requirements with the need to preserve the material's delicate beauty. Marcus assists by preparing materials and maintaining tools, but the actual construction work requires skills that only come from years of experience and natural aptitude for detailed craftsmanship. Roman apprenticeship provides valuable support but cannot substitute for master-level expertise when projects demand the highest possible quality. After 2 weeks of intensive work, you complete the basic construction and begin the delicate process of adding decorative elements. This is where the commission will either achieve imperial magnificence or reveal itself as expensive failure. Roman decorative work is where technical skill transforms into artistic expression, creating pieces that transcend mere functionality to become cultural artifacts. The pearl settings require precision that combines leatherwork with jewelry techniques. Each pearl must be securely attached while appearing to float gracefully on the purple leather surface. Roman luxury decoration creates the illusion of effortless beauty while concealing the complex technical work required to achieve such effects. The sapphires present even greater challenges because their hardness and weight require reinforced attachment points that must remain invisible in the finished product. Roman stone setting in leather requires understanding how different materials interact and how stress points can be managed without compromising either beauty or durability. By the end of the third week, the sandals are taking shape as works of art that happen to be functional footwear. The purple leather gleams with the depth of imperial dignity. The gold thread catches light, like captured sunbeams, and the pearls and sapphires add notes of subtle brilliance that enhance rather than overwhelm the overall design. Roman imperial craftsmanship represents the pinnacle of human artistic achievement within the constraints of practical functionality. However, perfection remains elusive. Small details require constant adjustment. Minor imperfections demand correction, and the pressure of imperial expectations creates stress that affects both judgment and manual dexterity. Roman imperial work operates under psychological pressure that can undermine even the most skilled craftsmanship if not carefully managed. With 3 weeks remaining until the wedding, you receive word that an imperial representative will visit your workshop to inspect progress and ensure that the commission meets imperial standards. Roman imperial quality control involves multiple levels of oversight because the reputation of the entire imperial household depends on the excellence of every detail associated with their ceremonies. The representative arrives with an entourage that includes fashion experts, court officials, and guards whose presence transforms your modest workshop into a temporary extension of the imperial palace. Roman imperial inspections are formal events that require careful protocol and demonstrate the seriousness with which the imperial household approaches even minor details. I am Claudius Nero, Master of Imperial Ceremonies, the representative announces. I'm here to evaluate the wedding sandals for the emperor's niece. Roman imperial officials have titles that reflect their specialized functions within the complex hierarchy of palace administration. You present the sandals on a purple silk cloth that provides an appropriate background for imperial viewing. Every detail of the presentation contributes to the overall impression of quality and respect. Roman imperial protocol requires understanding how to present work in ways that honor both the craftsmanship and the imperial dignity of the recipients. Claudius examines the sandals with the expertise of someone who has evaluated luxury goods for imperial use over many years. His assessment will determine whether your work meets imperial standards or requires modification. Roman imperial judgment is informed by experience with the finest craftsmanship available anywhere in the known world. The leather quality is exceptional, he observes. The purple dye is properly saturated and evenly applied. The cutting and shaping show master-level skill. Roman imperial evaluation begins with technical assessment of materials and basic construction quality. The gold threadwork is sophisticated, he continues. The symbolic elements are appropriately rendered and correctly positioned. The pearl settings demonstrate advanced technical capability. Roman imperial review considers both artistic merit and symbolic appropriateness of decorative elements. However, he adds, and your heart sinks because imperial, however, usually introduces serious criticism, The sapphire placement seems slightly asymmetrical. The left sandal has one stone positioned marginally higher than its counterpart on the right sandal. Roman imperial standards notice details that would be invisible to normal customers, but are significant when viewed by experts with unlimited time and imperial authority. You examine the sandals carefully and discover that he's correct. The difference is minute, perhaps the width of a hair, but it exists, and imperial work cannot tolerate such imperfections. Roman imperial quality control identifies flaws that require correction regardless of the time and effort involved. The issue can be corrected, Claudius continues, but it must be addressed before final delivery. Imperial ceremonies require absolute perfection in every detail. Roman imperial tolerance for imperfection is essentially zero because imperial events are viewed by people who understand quality and have the authority to notice problems. You agree to make the necessary corrections, understanding that imperial commissions succeed only when they exceed, rather than merely meeting expectations. Roman imperial work represents the absolute pinnacle of craft achievement within the technical and artistic possibilities of the time. Correcting the sapphire alignment requires partially disassembling the decorative elements and rebuilding them with enhanced precision. This is exactly the kind of setback that makes imperial commissions both profitable and terrifying. Roman imperial work operates under standards that demand perfection, even when achieving perfection requires extraordinary effort and expense. The correction process involves carefully removing the affected sapphire without damaging the surrounding leather or gold threadwork. Imperial materials are too expensive to waste through careless handling. Roman precision work requires tools, techniques, and concentration that push human capabilities to their practical limits. Marcus assists by maintaining optimal lighting organizing tools and providing the kind of steady support that allows master craftsmen to focus completely on demanding technical work. Roman apprenticeship proves its value during crisis situations when additional hands and attention to detail make the difference between success and failure. The sapphire removal reveals underlying construction details that can be improved during the reassembly process. Imperial standards create opportunities for enhancement that wouldn't be justified for normal commercial work. Roman imperial projects benefit from the resources and time required to achieve results that transcend normal commercial possibilities. Repositioning the stone requires creating new attachment points while concealing all evidence of the modification. Imperial work must appear effortless, even when it requires extraordinary technical complexity. Roman luxury craftsmanship creates the illusion of natural perfection while hiding the human effort required to achieve such results. The reassembly process takes 4 days of intensive work, but the final result achieves the symmetrical precision required for imperial approval. Both sandals now display identical stone placement that satisfies even the most demanding inspection. Roman imperial standards, while seemingly impossible, drive craftsmen to achieve levels of excellence that establish new benchmarks for quality and artistry. With the corrections completed, you focus on final finishing work that will transform excellent sandals into imperial masterpieces worthy of the most important wedding in the empire. Roman imperial finishing work involves attention to details that most people would never notice, but that distinguish truly exceptional craftsmanship from merely competent work. The final 2 weeks before the imperial wedding bring an intensity of focus and effort that pushes both you and Marcus to the limits of your capabilities. Imperial deadlines are not negotiable, and imperial quality standards brook no compromise. Roman imperial work requires sustained excellence over extended periods while maintaining the mental clarity needed for consistent decision-making. Every remaining task receives the same meticulous attention that was devoted to correcting the sapphire placement. Edge finishing, final fitting adjustments, protective treatments, and presentation preparation all demand master-level execution. Roman imperial projects succeed only when every component achieves the same exceptional standard of quality and artistry. Marcus proves invaluable during this period, handling routine tasks with increasing skill while learning advanced techniques through observation and guided practice. Roman apprenticeship accelerates during intensive projects, when apprentices witness master-level work and contribute to achieving results beyond normal commercial standards. The leather conditioning needs to be perfect. You explain while applying protective treatments that will preserve the purple color and maintain suppleness. Imperial sandals must remain beautiful for years, not just for the wedding ceremony. Roman imperial durability requirements exceed normal footwear standards because imperial possessions become family heirlooms that reflect on imperial dignity across generations. The final fitting adjustments require precision measurements and careful modifications that ensure perfect comfort without compromising the visual perfection of the design. Roman imperial comfort standards recognize that ceremony participants must remain comfortable during extended formal events while maintaining dignified appearance. As the deadline approaches, your workshop becomes a center of controlled intensity where every action contributes to achieving the impossible standard of imperial perfection. Roman imperial work environments develop their own rhythm and culture that sustains extraordinary effort while maintaining the quality focus essential for success. 3 days before the wedding, you complete the final details and prepare for the ultimate test: imperial approval of the finished sandals. Roman imperial completion represents the culmination of weeks of intensive effort and the beginning of evaluation that will determine both immediate success and long-term career prospects. The final inspection takes place at the imperial villa where the wedding will be celebrated. Your sandals will be evaluated in the actual environment where they'll be worn under the lighting conditions and among the luxury furnishings that provide context for imperial ceremony. Roman imperial evaluation considers not just the quality of individual pieces, but how they integrate with the overall aesthetic environment of imperial events. You arrive carrying the sandals in a specially constructed presentation case lined with silk and designed to protect the precious materials while displaying them to maximum advantage. Roman imperial presentation requires understanding how first impressions contribute to overall evaluation and how proper staging enhances appreciation of craftsmanship quality. The evaluation committee includes Claudius Nero representatives from the bride's family, imperial fashion consultants, and court officials whose approval is required for anything associated with imperial ceremonies. Roman imperial decision-making involves multiple stakeholders who must all agree that the work meets the standards appropriate for imperial family use. The sandals are examined under optimal lighting conditions that reveal every detail of construction and decoration. The purple leather glows with rich depth. The gold thread creates intricate patterns of light and shadow, and the pearls and sapphires add focused brilliance that enhances the overall composition. Roman imperial evaluation utilizes ideal conditions to assess how luxury goods will appear during actual ceremonial use. Exceptional work, declares Claudius after thorough examination. The technical execution is flawless. The artistic vision is appropriate for imperial use, and the attention to detail exceeds expectations. Roman imperial approval represents professional validation at the highest possible level within the empire's cultural hierarchy. The bride's mother expresses satisfaction with how the sandals complement the wedding ensemble and enhance the overall ceremonial presentation. Roman imperial customer satisfaction involves multiple criteria, including technical quality, aesthetic appropriateness, and contribution to ceremonial dignity. These sandals represent the finest Roman craftsmanship, observes one of the fashion consultants. They honor traditional values while demonstrating contemporary artistic sophistication. Roman imperial fashion criticism recognizes achievement that advances the state of the art while maintaining appropriate respect for cultural traditions. The final approval is unanimous and payment is completed immediately. Imperial commissions are settled promptly because delay in payment would be inconsistent with imperial dignity. Roman imperial business relationships operate according to principles of mutual respect and prompt fulfillment of obligations. With imperial approval secured, you have achieved the pinnacle of Roman craft success. Your reputation is now established at the highest levels of society, and future opportunities will reflect this enhanced status. Roman imperial success creates lasting professional advantages that justify the extraordinary effort required to achieve imperial standards. The imperial wedding takes place in gardens that have been transformed into a ceremonial space worthy of the most important social event of the year. Every detail reflects imperial wealth, power, and commitment to cultural excellence. Roman imperial ceremonies demonstrate the empire's cultural sophistication while reinforcing social hierarchies and political relationships. You are honored with an invitation to observe the ceremony from a position where you can witness how your sandals perform during actual imperial use. Roman craftsmen rarely have opportunities to see their work in its intended context, making such invitations valuable professional experiences. The bride appears radiant in an ensemble that represents the finest Roman fashion. Your purple sandals provide the perfect foundation for her ceremonial dress, creating visual harmony while ensuring comfort during the extended ceremony. Roman imperial fashion achieves effects that transcend individual components, creating total presentations that communicate cultural messages about power, tradition, and aesthetic sophistication. Throughout the ceremony, you observe that the sandals perform flawlessly. The bride remains comfortable during hours of standing and ceremonial movement, while the sandals maintain their beautiful appearance under the scrutiny of Rome's most sophisticated observers. Roman imperial performance standards require both immediate excellence and sustained quality throughout extended use under demanding conditions. The ceremony concludes with universal recognition that every element contributed to an event worthy of imperial family celebration. Your sandals played their part in creating a memorable occasion that will be discussed throughout Roman society. Roman imperial success is measured by contribution to events that become lasting memories for participants and observers. During the reception, several imperial family members and court officials approach you to discuss future commissions. Imperial success creates opportunities for additional imperial work. Roman imperial reputation spreads through networks that connect the most influential people in the empire, creating business opportunities that transcend normal commercial relationships. By the end of the celebration, you have established yourself as the imperial family's preferred craftsman for luxury footwear. This represents a professional achievement that will define the remainder of your career. Roman imperial recognition provides security, prestige, and income opportunities that few craftsmen ever achieve. As you return to your workshop after the imperial wedding, you reflect on the extraordinary journey that began with nearly dying before lunch and culminated in creating footwear for the emperor's family. Roman life operates according to principles that seem chaotic, but actually follow predictable patterns of risk, opportunity, challenge, and occasional triumph. Your success demonstrates that Roman society, despite its dangers and complexities, provides pathways for advancement based on skill dedication and the ability to seize opportunities when they arise. Roman meritocracy functions imperfectly, but does allow exceptional individuals to transcend their original circumstances through excellence in their chosen crafts. Marcus, your apprentice, has developed skills that will soon qualify him for independent practice. Roman apprenticeship systems successfully transfer knowledge and capabilities across generations while providing economic opportunities for young people. Roman education, whether formal or craft-based, creates human capital that drives the empire's continued cultural and economic development. Your expanded workshop now serves customers throughout Roman society, from ordinary citizens seeking reliable footwear to imperial family members commissioning luxury goods for ceremonial use. Roman commerce operates across social boundaries, connecting different economic levels through shared appreciation for quality craftsmanship and reliable service. The bureaucratic fine that once threatened your business now seems like a minor inconvenience compared to the challenges of imperial commissions. Roman perspective changes as circumstances evolve and new challenges replace old problems. Roman resilience develops through exposure to difficulties that initially seem overwhelming, but gradually become manageable through experience and adaptation. Looking back on your Roman day, you realize that survival in the ancient world requires not just avoiding immediate dangers, but building capabilities that create long-term security and prosperity. Roman success stories demonstrate that ancient life, while harsh and unpredictable, offers genuine opportunities for people willing to work hard, learn constantly, and maintain high standards despite challenging circumstances. Your journey from potential death before lunch to imperial recognition illustrates the Roman principle that individual effort, when combined with favorable circumstances and community support, can achieve results that transform both personal circumstances and professional reputation. Roman civilization succeeds because it provides frameworks within which individual excellence can flourish, while contributing to collective prosperity and cultural advancement. Tonight, as you prepare for sleep in your comfortable apartment with your successful business secured and your future prospects bright, you offer thanks to the gods who have guided your path from survival to prosperity. Roman gratitude acknowledges both divine favor and human effort in achieving success that seemed impossible when your day began. With fleas, bureaucratic fines, and the daily struggle to avoid catastrophe. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, new opportunities, and new tests of your abilities. But tonight, you rest as a master craftsman whose work graces imperial ceremonies and whose reputation extends throughout the greatest city in the world. Roman achievement provides not just material success, but the satisfaction of knowing that your skills contribute to the cultural excellence that defines civilization at its finest. In the end, your Roman survival story demonstrates that while ancient life was indeed dangerous, difficult, and often brutal, it also provided pathways to achievement, recognition, and prosperity for those willing to navigate its challenges with skill, determination, and unwavering commitment to excellence. Roman history remembers not just the emperors and generals, but also the craftsmen, merchants, and ordinary citizens whose daily efforts created the foundation for one of history's greatest civilizations. Your sandals will outlast the political events of your time, serving as tangible evidence that Roman craftsmanship achieved standards of quality and beauty that continue to inspire admiration across the centuries. Roman legacy lives on in the work of countless individuals who chose excellence over mediocrity despite the challenges and dangers that made such choices difficult but ultimately rewarding. So when you think about ancient Rome, remember that behind the famous battles, political intrigues, and architectural monuments were ordinary people like yourself, working every day to create something beautiful, useful, and enduring in a world that was trying its best to kill them before lunch. Roman civilization was built one sandal, one belt, one piece of leather at a time by people who understood that survival requires not just avoiding death, but creating reasons to live. Sweet dreams, fellow travelers through time. May your own daily challenges prove as surmountable as those faced by a Roman leather worker who started his day with fleas and ended it with imperial recognition. Roman perseverance teaches us that no beginning is too humble and no goal too ambitious for those willing to invest the effort required to transform possibility into reality. This concludes our journey through a day in ancient Rome that expanded into weeks of challenges, growth, and ultimate triumph. The story demonstrates that while Roman life was indeed perilous and difficult, it also provided opportunities for those with skill, determination, and the courage to pursue excellence despite overwhelming obstacles. Remember, if you enjoyed this historical journey, like and subscribe and let me know in the comments what historical period you'd like to explore next. Until then, sleep well and be grateful for indoor plumbing antibiotics and the fact that you probably won't die before lunch. Roman motto for modern times: sic transit gloria mundi. Thus passes the glory of the world, but excellent craftsmanship endures forever.